Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Crashing Combos. In this episode, we have Kenneth Stone. Kenneth Stone is an Army veteran who served in the infantry. He's also the founder of Soldiers On Singletrack. He's a 501c3 veteran-led mountain bike crew and race team. Their mission is to support veterans in managing service-related stress by providing a community of like-minded individuals who are pursuing a common purpose through the mental and physical challenge of high-intensity mountain biking. They host group rides, provide skills and maintenance clinics, and support through training and sponsorship resources. If you want to learn more about them and follow along with them, please go to Instagram and check out Soldiers on Singletrack MTB. There's also a link tree in their bio where you can find out more about their 501c3. In this podcast, we get into how he started it, a little bit into his military career, the transition afterwards, as well as some crazy stories of him mountain biking and having to outrun a bear, which is, I'm sure, one of most of our fears. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation as we get into the weeds. If you want to listen to this podcast, please check out your favorite streaming app. Just search Crashing Combos. Or if you want to check us out on YouTube, check out Crashing Combos on YouTube. Thank you for listening. Without further ado, Kenneth Stone. I don't know if you heard of Dirt Life.
Yeah.
So Chris Maletta, I've had him on the podcast before. He kind of like me, just kind of trusted that he was talking to me, and he clicked on it, lost his profile.
Oh no.
Yeah, I feel bad about that. I mean, he's cool about it. He knows. I mean, he understands, and kind of fast forward taking this as a lessons learned. He started up another one. It's called At Dirty Crew, I think. And we kind of learned a lot of stuff with the lack of support that Instagram offers for people that have been hacked. It's just kind of the dirty side of it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I've had a lot of friends have their stuff hacked and like no support for like over a year, and then randomly get their account back. Like,
yeah.
With no real help, no like nothing, no correspondence between Instagram and them. It was just like, yep, sorry about your luck, and then randomly get it back.
Yeah, so I think that's the case with me. I think what I'm going to do is just end up creating a new account. I've been kind of getting not people, like just people close to me are just like, hey man, you should change your name. And especially with all the crashes I had, I'm like, I might be manifesting this shit, bringing it upon myself. So I've been thinking about changing it for a while, and I've had some suggestions, but I'm still trying to like sort that out right now and really try to do it differently this time. Yeah. Definitely going to turn on the double authentication thing. So if you guys are listening, make sure to lock down your stuff. Don't be like me, but don't be lazy. Apparently being out of the military and not have the IA training every year bit me in the ass. So
it definitely happens, especially if you're like TBI brain for like myself, like everything is almost the same exact, just different iterations of it. So It's like once you figure out one, you could probably figure out the like a couple others that I use.
So I'm glad you bring that up, because that is one of and I don't want to use that as an excuse, but it is the reality, right? It's like, it's these mundane tasks that like I can do things like under a lot of pressure, right? Whatever task you give me, I can probably knock it out with under a lot of pressure. But when it comes to like paying bills or like passwords, just minutia, I can't concentrate and get it done. It's very difficult for me. And I'm finding that that's a very common thing with a lot of people with either head trauma or PTSD, whatever, or maybe just in the military in itself, because of maybe the sense of mission, or not the sense of mission, but the mission and doing these important things. It's like going on deployment, right? And then you come back to garrison and it's like, why are we doing this stupid shit?
Yeah, right. Why am I here?
Yeah. It's kind of like, and then you continue to chase that, whether it's adrenaline or the mission or whatever, but you constantly raise your hand. At least I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry, we're kind of getting into it, but yeah, if you can introduce yourself real quick and then we'll kind of get into it. I think you do a better, people are better explaining who they are and what they're about, more so themselves as opposed to me. So you better than me.
Yeah. So I'm Kenny Stone. I am the founder of Soldiers on Singletrack Race and Ride. I started that this last year, but prior to that, what really got it started, best way to say that is my background. So go way back. I actually started riding dirt bikes as a kid. My dad actually got me into it when I was like 6. Fell in love with the sport, got into like middle school and was racing pretty heavily. I ended up actually having pretty gnarly crash, separated my shoulder and almost compound fracture. So um, that put me off the bike for like almost a solid year. And then in that time, my dad sold my dirt bike to buy himself a new one and said if I wanted another one, I'd have to save the money for it. So I started saving my money. Yeah, right. Like, makes sense. Dumped a lot of money on a dirt bike and needed a new one. And if I wanted one, I should buy it. So I started saving my money up. And then I just got to be the point where I was like, I'm done saving money. I need something. So I bought a mountain bike and started riding mountain bikes in high school and fell in love with it, especially downhill. It was very similar, fast pace, like racing dirt bikes. So that I kind of did that throughout high school and then joined the Army in 2006. Went in as an infantryman, 11B, went through basic at Fort Benning, did all that, and then got sent over to Fort Hood, Texas. I was part of 1-5 Cav, first Cav division, and immediately went to theater upon arrival. Like I think I was at Fort Hood for maybe a month before I went into theater.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they were already deployed, and so I met up with them there and did our deployment there. Saw some combat during that time. I was in the Amaria province. For people that have an idea of where that is, it's like right outside of the air base out there. It was one of Saddam's hunting grounds, essentially, and then right outside of that, the province was Amaria. So did our deployment there for a little over a year. Came back, was back at Hood, and like we were just saying, like why are we here? What are we doing? Like any chance we had to train, like we would jump on it to get out of garrison to go out in the field and be in the field. So spent my year back in Hood as much as we could out in training, and then redeployed again for another trip over Iraq again. That time I was not in inner city Baghdad. We were kind of more on the outskirts, and things had changed by that point. It was more hearts and minds that rather than the fast pace, door-to-door rush that we had the first time. It was more training everybody and just pulling security more, which was not my cup of tea. That's not really what I wanted to be doing, but I mean, it beat garrison at the point.
Yeah.
So we did that, and during that time frame, my mom ended up with a brain tumor.
Oh shit.
It was actually, I got a Red Cross message while we were in Kuwait, before we even actually deployed. And that point in time, our chain of command had already set off to kind of do their infill in country before the rest of us to get their intel and whatnot. So my chain of command wasn't there to kind of help me through that process. So I ended up not being able to go home. And it was like, your mom might live, she might not. We don't know. She ended up living through that surgery, luckily. But at that point in time, I kind of made the decision not to re-up. And I knew my contract was going to be up after that deployment. So we just did that, and I came home and I got out and went back home to be a part of my family. At that point, I had a 2-year-old daughter too. So figured I should be more of an active dad and be there for my mom as well. So I came home and dude, it was rough. Figuring out life outside the military, after being in, like, I mean, it's a perfect umbrella when you're in it. Like everything is taken care of for you. Right. All you need to do is right place, right time, right uniform, and you're set for life. Right. So coming back and having no real guide or someone to help me figure out life outside of that, it took me a long time to figure stuff out. Went down the rabbit hole of like just major depression and being like self-isolated and things like that. So, and jumping from job to job, like being an infantryman, getting out, like you're not really set up for success outside of that unless you do your due diligence while you're in and set something up. I did not. So like it was either go into law enforcement or be a bum, essentially was like my mindset. So I tried the law enforcement thing. And every time I went through an application process, I'd get to the end and they would either lose funding or something would happen and it just wouldn't fall through. So I kind of took that as like God's calling, really is the best way to put it, that I'm not supposed to be in that space. So I ended up getting into construction, working my way up through there, and then ended up being a project manager for some pretty big jobs here. And that was when things started to kind of get pretty bad for myself. I was going through a lot of like cognitive delays. Like I hadn't really seen a doctor since getting out, and then I was having really bad, like just fog is the best way to put it. I was in a heavy fog. I couldn't process thoughts. Like you were saying earlier, like mundane tasks were just insanely impossible, and I was starting to lose money on jobs, which is obviously not good. Mm-hmm. So I kind of started talking to my doctor, and we were trying to figure some things out. Went and got an MRI on my brain to see if that was kosher, and everything looked good. And so we decided, like, I needed to find a hobby. I needed to find something outside of work and being a dad. And so she's like, "Is there any hobbies you like to do?" I was like, "Well, I actually used to really enjoy riding bikes." She's like, "Yeah, perfect. Start riding a bike again." I was like, "Well, type of bike riding I do is not probably what you're thinking. I'm not going on the bike path and cruising the river. Like, yeah, I'm going as fast as I possibly can down a downhill
basket on the front."
Yeah, right. We're just it's not the same. And so I kind of showed her some videos of like other random things that I could find on like Pink Bike or Vital or something like that. But she's like, "Okay, well, that's a little sketchy, but if you can do your best and not hit your head, it's going to be perfect for you." I was like, "All right, cool." So that was in, see, we're in 23, so 2021 is when I got my first bike after being off the bike for 12 plus years. I went on Pink Bike, found my old unicorn bike that I used to want when I was racing before. Was the Evil Undead. It was the last downhill bike that they made, the carbon downhill bike, before they went full trail bike scene. So found one, went and picked it up, and I instantly fell in love with the sport again. Just being on the bike again was amazing. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try racing this year. So I jumped into the Northwest Cup up here in the Pacific Northwest and just started racing and fell even more in love with the sport. And then at the same time, like my brain cognition, like my just overall drive, like anything and possible, like mentally and even physically, obviously, like getting the exercise was good. It like skyrocketed my cognition and mental mood and everything, like bar none, nothing else has done anything for me like that. So at the end of the racing, it's like, okay, like I'm better because of riding my bike. So there's got to be some sort of connection between my time in the service and doing this, and other veterans need to be able to experience this. Or if they are experiencing it, like I want to get a group of veterans together to have fun doing this together. So I sat on the idea through the winter and tried to figure out how to make that happen. I had no idea. Like I'm a grunt, right? You tell me where to go, where to shoot, and
yeah,
I'll do that. I don't know how to do that. So after sitting on it for the winter, I kind of been telling my wife about it during that time frame. She said, "Just do it. You'll figure it out as you go." So what was it? Memorial Day 2022, I officially launched Soldiers on Singletrack, and we've been going since. It's been quite the experience to be running it and to watch it grow and to see the amount of veteran riders there already are across the states, let alone the amount of people that are just stoked to like get connected with other veterans to ride, has been pretty amazing to watch. And it's like I thought like riding with other vets would be like the bonus, but I think for me, like watching this grow and watching other veterans connect with people in their own area that wouldn't have ever known before that, it's been really cool. Like I've watched friendships grow out of just the connections that they've been able to make, and it's been a pretty big part of why I like doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I mean, and that's kind of like why I wanted to have you on, just to kind of see like where that kind of, blossomed, if you will, like for you. And then like, so it sounded like it started with you, like understanding like where you were at cognitive. I can't even speak cognitively. You gotta enunciate.
Yeah.
Um, and then like to try to like understand what it did for yourself and then try to expand that to others. And then that's some of the advice that I got. Like that's some of the best advice I got. This is the advice that your wife gave you is just like, just start,
Yeah.
and just figure it out. When I initially got out of the military, I was trying to figure out how to, um, when you kind of go through recovery in the sense of, mental health and, understanding like how we operate in the world and what was going on with you, and you start to kind of unpackage that, you kind of have this epiphany, right? And it's like, all right, how can I help others, right? And
Yeah.
I was still in the beginning of that. And I guess at some point in hindsight, like looking back on it, I was like still not in the right place to be doing that. I'm still learning about myself. I'm still packaging things for myself. And with that, it's like, I had this idea, right, to start a podcast, right, and to start talking about a lot. And that was also because of a lot of the crazy shit that was going on in the world. And it's just like I was like, I know I'm not the brightest or the sharpest tool in the shed, but I can see all these patterns unfolding, and I just want to talk about it. And then I had just started mountain biking. Fast forward, rewind a little bit, but I'm starting to get sidetracked. I just met some random dude in a trailhead as I was going to go for a ride. I started talking to him, and I had just came on with the Dirt Therapy Project, and it was still kind of in its beginning phase, right? And he ended up being an airman as well. And then I started talking to him about it, and I was just kind of like, vomiting at the mouth, really, just kind of just spewing out this information, and talked to him about the podcast, or the YouTube. At the time, it was like a YouTube channel, just because the bug bit me hard, right, when I started writing, and it was just on a whim trying to kind of grasp at straws to kind of find my way out of this fucking dark pit that I put myself in. And I was like, I'm just gonna buy a bike, and go out for a ride. So I kind of started watching YouTube videos. I'm sure like most of us have. And I was like, I really enjoy this. I'm going to start creating content and kind of express my way in a different way with mountain biking, and try to kind of tie that back into mental health. But
Yeah.
with that, he was just like, just start, man. Like, don't think about it too much. Just start. So going back to you, I mean, what are like some of the things that you learned about the process of starting a nonprofit and do all these things?
Uh, I'm still learning. Like the saying, like ignorance on fire is real. Like I did very minimal research on starting a nonprofit, which was probably not the smartest move, but I knew from the start that I wanted it to be a nonprofit. I didn't want to try to I didn't want to try to profit off of something, even though like it was, best way to put it, like a brainchild of mine, right? But ideally, it was to give back to the community, because the veteran community is heavy on my heart, obviously, being a veteran. So every day I'm learning something new. And every day I am trying to make it better for everybody else, more access. Bringing other people on to help has been a huge part of it, really. Because I'm only one person, I can't do everything, and I don't know everything. So having the expertise of other people come on and like wanting to help and wanting to help expand things is huge. Like sure Jonathan's kind of gone through the same thing with our therapy project. Um, and it's funny, like when I started, I didn't even know about their therapy project really beforehand. And then after I
Mhm.
started, it was like, oh, cool, there's another group doing the same,
Right.
like very similar thing. So I knew that that was not something that people were needing.
Right.
It was more so like a check and balances for me. Like, okay, this is something that people are looking for and needing, and so
Mhm.
it's been really cool to kind of watch what we're doing, and then as well as their therapy project as well.
Mhm.
Like, I'm very stoked for what everyone over there is doing. And same with what we got going on too. It's very similar, but I mean,
Yeah.
same time, like different flavor for everybody, I guess is the best way to put it. But it's been good to learn new things and to push myself outside of my comfort zone and to do something completely different and outside of my wheelhouse, and to have people that want to come on and help and want to push things further for themselves and then for the community as well. It's been a really big eye opener for me.
That's good. And have you run into any other issues? Like, I've noticed, well, I didn't notice, but okay, there's something I noticed, but there's another nonprofit called Operation Yellowbird. And we did a ride with them, and one of the reps there, we did like a joint ride, and there was this kind of error of, not with them, but I guess they had ran into another nonprofit somewhere. I don't know where, but it was kind of like this realization that there's nonprofits that are kind of like territorial in nature. You know what I mean? Like kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, like you're taking my guys or whatever. But and that's one thing I appreciate about Jonathan, and kind of one thing we had talked about like a while back was it's not the we can't like this program can't do everything, right? And it's not going to resonate with everyone in the way it needs to resonate. And not even mountain biking in general will resonate with everyone. Like there's a bunch of different tools that can be used, whether it's drawing, painting, writing, music.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is just kind of like one prong, right? To try to accommodate the community, right? And try to help them find their path, right? But have you like ran into any of that, like any other organizations that are kind of like, hey, you're encroaching on our turf, or so to speak?
Not really. Yes and no. It was, I think it was kind
you
of,
don't say names or nothing.
Yeah. I think it was a group that had a similar idea, right? Like getting veterans together to go ride bikes. And I had no idea about it. Like I honestly, in my own, like, not to like me monster, but in my own mind, I was like, I think I'm the first person to kind of think of this. Like this could be something really cool.
Right.
And then obviously, like as things progressed, and like we've only built this thing on Instagram, and so like the world of the algorithm, it starts popping those things into your feed, and you start to see these things. Like after I'd started, then I started to learn about Dirt Therapy Project. Then I started to learn about Yellowbird, and then there's another one too. But anyways, I didn't know until I really started it. And so to answer your question, like, there was a group that kind of they kind of were a little butthurt at first because we were gaining the traction on social media. Just I don't know how or why, but I'm thankful for it. And so that I think they were feeling left out, I think is more anything. And then once we got officially granted our 501c3, like that was something that I think they were trying to work on, but couldn't accomplish it. So I think it kind of just took the wind out of their sails. And I haven't heard from any of them in that group since, like, and it's a bummer. Like I feel like there's enough to go around. And what jives with me might not jive with you. And there might be another group that can do what you're looking for. Like predominantly, like personally, I like enduro and downhill. I'm not a big fan of pedaling. I'll do it, but it's not my favorite thing.
I do, but I'm not going to like it.
Yeah, right. Like I went down, a couple of guys from Dirt Therapy and we were invited with Vogue to go do the 24-hour hop in El Pueblo. For me, that sucked. Like that was type 2 fun. That's not my typical type of riding, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it kind of opened my eyes to more riding styles. Like I like to go really fast down hills and hopefully not crash. Like just sitting there pedaling for 16 miles is not typically what I would enjoy to go do. But after that, it was like, oh, okay, like that's actually kind of like a different type of fun. It's more of a mental push than like getting your like you're getting your rush for the adrenaline, right?
Right.
So it kind of opened my eyes with people that have asked to to join Soldiers on Singletrack. Like, hey, like I see a lot of downhill jumping and things like that. Like that's above my skill level. I really like doing this style riding. Is that something you guys are interested in? Hell yeah! If you want to ride your bike, like by all means, do what you like to do, riding your bike. I'm now realizing that there's more than just what I like to do.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and having other groups that like focus on that, I think is beneficial.
yeah, and that's really important. And we're learning the same thing in that sense. And I've heard Jonathan say those same things. Like there's more than enough to go around, you know. And one thing I'm learning is like the more you can collaborate with other groups, kind of doing good things, whether it's mountain biking, fishing, whatever. One, you're aware of it. So if you have a vet that you find out is like, hey, I really love to fish. Also, like, hey man, go check out this nonprofit over here. They do this, or check out this dude. He likes to fish too on his spare time, and it's like really connecting. Um, like trying to help them find community and whatever passion that they have, because within that there's growth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Experiences. Um, but yeah, and that's good. Like I kind of when I first started writing, I had the same idea, right? Because when I found out about the Dirt Therapy Project, I didn't know about the program, if that makes sense. I got
Yeah.
it. I had just started writing. I was selling some tires that didn't work out for me to another vet that we ended up talking for like 4 or 5 hours in a parking lot at like 10 o'clock at night. It was supposed to be like 15 minutes, and fast forward like 4 or 5 hours. My wife's calling me, and I don't like to like check my phone. I'm kind of talking with anybody.
Yeah.
But luckily she was just like, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be some crazy story later. But the next week I got invited to by him. And it's like, hey, I got a buddy. He's gonna be going to Bentonville, and I was like, where the fuck's Bentonville? Because I just started writing.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he wants to take some get some content for his page or whatever. I was like, I don't know anything about it, but I knew there were vets. So that was kind of like all right, I can, you know, I'll go, because I don't know, it's just kind of a different level of trust that even though I don't really know them, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
yeah. No,
strange.
I
But
get
if it
it.
was somebody else that I didn't know, I probably wouldn't have went. And if I would have known that it was because it wasn't yet a nonprofit at that time, it had just started it.
Okay.
And but if I would have known, I probably wouldn't have went, because I didn't want anything to do with the military at that time. Um, I was just trying to do my own thing and kind of get away from it and trying to transition to something else. But I was so excited and grateful for the opportunity to go out there. I would kind of just let them know we're talking and I've talked about this before. Fast forward, I was like, man, I want to start a nonprofit, because like I'm getting so much out of it, and it's kind of helped me rediscover something that I could be good at again, like other than like football when I played in high school or whatever. It was the last time I actually felt like I could be good at something. I kind of felt like my life was over at that point, like
Yeah.
athletics, sports wise or whatever. And when I started mountain biking, I was like, shit, I'm actually okay at this. I'm crashing
Yeah.
a shit ton, but it's still like that adrenaline rush that I was getting
Oh
from
yeah.
it. So I was like, man, I was thinking about starting. He's like, well, that's what I'm doing. I was like, dude, I'll do whatever I can to boost your signal, right? And that's kind of how it started, and got invited to more. Then I started to take my GoPro and try to make videos. I was kind of like self-taught video editing at the time, and just had this mindset of getting better each attempt, right? And the same thing with writing.
Yeah, right.
And then it's just kind of grown like crazy, but in a good way, right? But going back to you, it's like it's it's takes a lot of different approaches, and even if it's the same subject matter or the same sport, uh sometimes people just don't click right, and you need all these different type of experiences and people to kind of um grow whatever it is that veterans need to kind of grow for themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Shit, I was just completely lost my
Yeah,
train of
that shit
thought.
happens to me all the time. That's
It's
what happens to
dude.
get hit in the head a lot.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a thought, and then it just
Um, you're good. So what part of Pacific Northwest are you at?
I'm in Oregon, so I'm in an area called Oak Ridge.
Okay.
It's a I'd say it's a hidden gem, but it's not really that hidden. We have some like world class single track in this area. Like from my house, if I hop in my car, like if my wife shuttles me in like 30 minutes, I'm at the top of a 14-mile descent, and
Wow.
I absolutely love it. Right now I can't ride it because we're covered in snow. Like at
Uh,
my house, I'm not, but all the trails are covered in snow. So I'm very fortunate where I live. Like I have a lot of access to some really great single track, and I like to be able to ride it every minute I can. And then in Oregon and Washington, that's generally where I ride. Oregon, Washington area, we have some amazing trail networks and trail alliances up here doing a lot of good work.
so I was in Oregon last year. I'm not sure
Okay.
if I told you this or not. I went to United Bicycle Institute. I was
Oh yeah, down south in Ashland area, right?
yeah. So where is
Okay,
that in
yeah.
relation to
I'm about
Ashland?
uh, so Ashland is about 3 hours south of where I'm at. Like
Okay.
if you
So
take
you
I-5 south, you'll hit Ashland.
so you
So it's
by
about
Bend or
yeah. So I got to go up and over the hill. Like I'm basically in between Eugene and Bend, but like there's two highways you could take to get over to Bend. I'm on Highway 58. It's like the longer route to get over to Bend, but I think it's a better drive personally.
yeah.
See a lot more.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't out there. I mean, I was out there about a month, but it was like when the gas prices were stupid.
Oh God, it was
Yeah,
horrible up
so
here.
I couldn't afford because I drove all the way from Texas up there.
Ooh,
But so yeah, I couldn't afford to go anywhere really because it was so stupid expensive. But I did manage to ride the trails in Ashland, like Jabberwocky and all those.
oh yeah,
That,
that
that was
some
fun.
amazing trails up there. If you go like up Four Corners area,
Hmm.
Jabberwocky's up by that. From there down, and then you could ride literally right into town.
Hmm.
It's the trail networks up there are pretty amazing. I that was like my first love of mountain biking was down in Ashland. When I first started in high school, they used to have, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have a spring thaw race, and it was basically the kickoff to like the season, right? Everyone would come down to Ashland and they would race from Four Corners down most of the trail, not all the way down into town. And then and then it was just this big party essentially for the weekend. And that's where I really fell in love with the sport.
Nice.
And then I
Yeah,
found Black Rock, and that changed everything for
I
me.
got invited to Black Rock
If you,
by you know a guy named. I mean, I say that because it's a small community, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
there's a guy named
oops,
Aaron Riddle that invited me up to Black Rock. If you don't know him, that's fine. It's a big state.
yeah. Name sounds
But
super familiar.
yeah, so I one of the days I was riding up there, it was me and a classmate. We were riding, and we got down to the bottom, and there was a guy named Tom Winkler. I think he goes by Timber Rides,
Yeah,
and yeah, a few others. And we met them at the bottom. I was wearing the 2DTP shirt or
yeah,
jersey. Got talking, got invited to an event that we're having, like some fundraiser with like some SRAM reps and some other people at some like little pub or bar there or whatever. And I wasn't gonna go, but I went and ended up talking with some of the folks there. Fast forward, they are like, "Hey, we're gonna do a ride at Mountain of the Rogue tomorrow. If you want to go." I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I went and got to kind of mosey a little bit more with the locals there. Got to
yeah,
ride, and that was fun. I didn't. I was riding a lot of the trails blind, and I was hauling ass. But I just got gassed on one of the lines. I think it was like my fourth or three or fourth, third or fourth time down. And I was just gassed by the time. Some of the guys are on e-bikes, so they just kept
yeah,
going like nothing. But either way, we got to talk in the parking lot. They're like, you should come back and let's go to Black Rock. And I was like, what's that? And they're like, it's this place with awesome jumps and gaps. I was like, hell yeah, I'm down. I just haven't gone back yet.
yeah. If you ever get the chance to come back up and ride it, it is definitely worth it. It's truly where I really fell in love with the sport. And to watch where it has evolved from then, like 20 years ago, is
Mm-hmm.
pretty incredible. Like the time and effort that people have put into building those trails has been amazing. And then on top of that, like it's just some phenomenal riding. Like, yeah, it's good.
I
It's
know
really good.
I know it's good when you're having trouble trying to find the words to describe it.
Yeah, and it has such a varying degree. Like there are a lot of jumps, a lot of good berms, and a lot of good single track. Like in pick your poison, and they have it.
Yeah,
Um, and then we've had some unfortunate storms come through, so they've had to like rework a lot of stuff, and they're finding now they're starting to get rid of some of that old, because that was like one of the first like real free ride mountain bike parks that we've had. I mean it's push every once in a while they have shuttle days, but you got to push a ride up to enjoy it. But
got you.
it's definitely worth it. And so a lot of the trails, like back in the day, they used to use a lot of wood because that was the scene back then. And now they're starting to get rid of a lot of the wood features and make it dirt to dirt. With some, I mean, there's still some wood stuff up there, but like thought out more and
Mm.
rides a lot better. And it's been really cool to watch the progress. And whenever I get the chance, I try to go up for a dig day,
Yeah,
put in some shovel time at the area that I enjoy to ride.
yeah, because that's important, right? Because it also kind of gives you some, I don't know, like buying into the system, understand like what the work that they put in to get the trails that the way they are. That's something I need to do more of. I have gone to a couple, but um trying to like manage races and other stuff, it's challenging with time, right? And trying to balance family life, etc. But yeah, I definitely want to go back up there and check that out. I remember when I was riding the trails and they're like the locals that I was riding with, not Mount of the Road locals. It was like some guys from the schoolhouse, like some of the instructors, or one of the instructors, and they're like, "Yeah, it's so blown out." And I was like, "I'm coming from Texas, man. Like, this is the much like so much flow and smooth. Like even the braking bumps were like smooth.
Yeah.
And because here, I mean, it's a lot of limestone. There's not a whole lot of elevation, and it's really loose. It's like riding on marble sometimes. But
Yeah.
with that, it comes like you have to become a better rider. If not, you're just gonna keep eating shit.
Yep.
So
Yeah. You have to be okay with your bike slide and like
yeah,
being able to articulate your bike the way to make it grip where it needs to and slide where it
yeah.
needs to.
So with that, it's the riding scene. I think a lot of the riders going up to like some of the races and stuff are like starting a podium and stuff. And I think a lot of people kind of catch it. Texas people slipping because they don't think like there's, I would think the same thing. I mean, I still have people like family like mountain bike. We don't have any mountains. I'm like, yeah, I know, I understand that, but there's still like some elevation and there's a lot of, and it's growing here like crazy. I guess like anywhere else, like Reveille Peak Ranch, they're putting some huge monster jumps there.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
and it's like, also you can get some like single track stuff going, and it's strange because I don't say strange, but the geology, like the rocks there, are different. It's kind of like Sedona. It's like this red rock, grippy,
Hmm.
like chunky, like rocks. The races are pretty interesting, but they also started to build up, and it's one interesting fact about the place. They farm out the dirt to all the Major League Baseball fields here. Like they buy the dirt because of the, I don't know, like granite, dirt, sand mixture, that the ratio is good, really good for
Hmm.
ballparks.
Interesting.
So if you think about it from like forming a trail, or forming
Yeah.
a jump, it packs really well. So anywho, a little bit about that, and then there's Spider Mountain, which is right next to it. That's like, I don't know, like 250, but it's you don't have to pedal. So if you don't like pedaling,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can buy a chairlift ticket and you just do runs and runs and runs like all day, and it's really fun. There's chunky stuff. They're putting bigger jumps. That place is definitely growing. And then there's Austin and different things like that, but there's a lot of road trails as well. But with that, it's just like the community is growing, and then going back to like nonprofit space, veterans. I think a lot of veterans most of the time shy away from hanging around non-veterans because They don't want to have to watch what they say or do. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because population is sensitive. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think mountain biking in general, you can let me know if it's the same with you. But I think that's an important aspect of it. Like some of our rides, especially the local rides, we open it up to everyone that can join us, because within that there's opportunities, right? There's job opportunities, there's resources that people just kind of end up networking and sharing or whatever. But
Yeah.
it also kind of lets other vets know, like, hey, some of the civilians are cool too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Like showing the support, like the
Right.
civilian side showing support for the veteran community and the group, right? And we kind of do the same thing. Like on some of our rides, like we have vet specific rides, so like and we kind of tailor that to like newcomers essentially. But also a lot of our rides are open to the public as well, because a lot of my personal friends and people that I've met in the mountain bike community want to help support us, and for them it's coming out and help shuttle drive, help guide, like help barbecue on an event or like whatever. I've been very fortunate to have the amount of friends that I have come out to help support our rides. It's been really fun to watch. And then like you said, like watching the interaction between veteran and civilian, like it, it's kind of funny because you get a bunch of vets together and they start talking our jargon, right? And then you
Right.
get civilians that are sitting there like, what the fuck is going on? And then by the end of the day, they're all like kind of congruent together, right? All having the same type of conversation, able to like mold into each other. And it's been really fun to watch and be a part of.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good. It's good to allow people to like help out and like try to grow it, because that brings awareness. That kind of also, um, I think there's a fine line of kind of bringing awareness to vets and like the mental health issues that a lot of vets have, but also kind of segregate the majority. Yes, we are kind of, I don't want to say special, but a different group. I'll say that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
our experiences are different, but they're not so much different from like first responders or like general people that experience trauma, because a lot of the symptoms are the same. And that fine line is like, if we were to kind of put this, line in the sand and say like, no, this is just for us and you guys, figure your own shit out. That kind of breeds like some animosity, and
Oh, definitely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, completely agree. Like I'm very pro having first responders out with us, because I mean the they go through things on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
whereas like most veterans, yeah, we go through things on a daily basis, but most of the trauma that most of us did experience were through a deployment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are things that happen in garrison, and I'm not negating that, but for the vast majority, most things that have happened on a deployment. So that's like a year time span, right? For when I was in that, like your deployment time was a year
Right.
max, depending on the branch you served in. But you get someone that's working as a first responder, that's however long their career is on a daily basis that they're dealing with those things. So
Yeah.
they're able, I think they're more than uh accepted
Right.
in my eyes as being a part of what we have going on, because like you said, the amount that they are dealing with, it coexists between
Right.
veteran and first responders.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like it's interesting how many veterans kind of naturally gravitate towards first responders, and like it's interesting that those that did not serve and are first responder or serve in the sense of military, they're serving their community in a different way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's interesting how we both share like, even though the jargon's a little bit different, we both share like the same dark humor. We kind of
Oh
just
yeah.
laugh at the most crazy, insane shit, and there's just this kind of level of I don't want to say insensitivity, but it's just like we understand when we're fucking around, we understand when we're being serious, and there doesn't really have to be any explanations around that.
Yeah, there's a tone behind it, I think is the best way to
Yeah,
put it. Like
yeah,
when someone's fucking around, and when someone's being serious.
right,
There's a definite tone change, and it coexist between the two. And yeah, everyone kind of gets it. And then even most of the, like I was saying, the civilians, like by the end of the day, they understand coming into it that it's going to be a little different if they haven't had that exposure. But by the end of the day, they're picking up on whatever random bullshit that we're talking about and are able to kind of jump in at here and there and kind of share their bits and pieces.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what challenges do you kind of see like in the space like just in Oregon, or like have you just kind of been not really hitting many roadblocks as far as with the nonprofit or anything like within the community?
Oregon is an interesting state. I absolutely love it because of the riding I have here. Politically, not I'm not super
I'm
pro
tracking.
on what's happening, but it's like one of those things, man. Like you gotta pick your battles, and I pick riding, so that's
Yeah,
where I'm at right now. But we'll see in the future. But as far as like, it's, for me, start like getting the 501c3 status was a bit of a, a stretch. I ended up hiring a lawyer to help me through the process, just because like there was a lot of big words that I did not understand, and I wasn't going to take the time to understand. So I had help in that aspect, and that helped a lot. It was just more time consuming, but outside of that, like we haven't had any big issues or problems. In fact, we've had more people wanting to reach out because we have our 501c3. It's just finding that time to like facilitate everything. Like right now, I'm, like I said, ignorance on fire, man. I got a lot of irons in the fire right now that I'm trying to like manage, and uh focusing on one and then forgetting about the other and jumping over. So
hmm
for me, the challenge is like picking one task a day essentially and focusing on that one task and just scheduling things out the best I can. And then also handing things over, being okay handing things over, which I'm more than okay with. Like if I
hmm
could hand something over to someone else and know that they're more than capable of doing it, perfect. That's one less thing I have to think about and just kind of check in with. But um, like this year, we started our first race team this year, and so I've really been heavy into that and trying to get things moving to try to help support
hmm
everyone. So like I think right now we're at 60. I think we're at 60 that are going to run the program this year under with whatever race that they're doing, whether it be a series or one off. And so we're trying to, I'm, I say we because my wife helps me out a ton, trying to figure out how to facilitate 60 riders.
Right. That's quite a bit. Yeah, especially like sponsored riders,
Yeah.
because I managed the team for it, but it started out with like 12, and then it's quickly growing into other people around the states. So it's also like trying to find and empower them to start networking for their area to kind of have like satellite, teams.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, like it is a nonprofit, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that there's a whole lot of money coming in all the time. So it's like trying to manage and be smart about how to go forward with managing so many people, but at the same
Yeah.
time, you don't want to restrict it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to support each rider at an individual basis on whatever they might need, and trying to help source help in their areas, because not everybody's here in Oregon. Like that's across the nation,
Mm.
um, East Coast, Central, West Coast. So like uh, finding what race series they're in, and trying to base their support, because I'm here. I'm not going to be at all the races, being or have someone at out, like, because we actually just had a guy that raced. Oh crap, I forgot the name of the race already, but this last weekend, and he ended up podium for his category. But as far as support for him that race, like I couldn't facilitate that right then and there, because it was like
Right.
we were in the middle of starting it, and then he's like, yeah, I got this race this weekend. I was like, okay, cool, like give me updates and I'll send you some positive vibes. Like sorry,
Yeah.
dude. Like that's
Yeah.
the best I got right now. But like in the future, we'd like to be able to do more for each rider, depending on where they're at and what they got going on, and or what they need. If they don't need anything, if they just want a virtual high five, then that's what we'll provide. Like
Yeah.
we're just here to help support and create that community.
No, yeah, definitely. So like going back to the process of the nonprofit, like were you running into like people in the chain or the people that sign off like their individual biases towards like military, or is it just like the hiccups of not understanding the language of the legal jargon?
For me, it was more the legal jargon.
Okay.
Like one, the people that helped me out were amazing, and they continue to be amazing. They've helped me out at post um, quite a bit. So having that was massive, and they didn't have any issues once we submitted the paperwork either. It was like as soon as it was submitted, it was like, okay, we just got to sit and wait. And then like there was no back and forth between them and the IRS. It was like they sent it in and they approved it and sent it back. So
Nice.
for our end, it was pretty seamless. It was just like I said, that understanding the jargon, and it was like way above my head.
Yeah. No, yeah, I've had to read, I'm sure we've all were adults. We've all had to read some type of legal document, and it's like some of the words they use, it's like, what? Like what are you writing? Like what century are you in? And I wonder if they do that just to kind of create
I think some of it might be a deterrent.
right,
Like if we make this process mindfully painful, then it's going to deter some people from getting a nonprofit status.
right. Yeah, and I guess there's two sides to look at it, right? Because you just don't want to hand them out to anybody and everybody, because not everybody has the right intent with a nonprofit or
Yeah.
anything in general. So I guess that's fair. But so riding in Oregon, like, what's one of the craziest things that you've seen? Like, have you been chased by a bear yet or anything?
I've actually up here in Oak Ridge has probably been I've had some crazy riding stories over my years, but like literally this last year has been the craziest for me personally. That 14-mile trail I was telling you about is called Alpine.
Mm-hmm.
And when was that? It was like mid to late summer. I went up to go up there by myself. Got up to the top, took a minute, and I started pedaling down the start of it, which you go through a bunch of bear grass right there. And I was filming myself riding. I was just doing a pedal and trying to get some content for later on. And
Like your face, or you're like
no, like I was
like a chest
had the
teeth?
phone in my had my phone in my hand, and I'm pedaling down the trail, and like I pedal struck like a piece of like a bunch grass next to me, and like got all sideways and hopped over the bars and landed on my feet, like no big crash. I was like, oh well, that was dumb. And then like about 50 yards to my right, there was some rustling in the trees. I was like, oh, okay. And then I could see a little bit of brown. I was like, oh, sweet, I'm going to see an elk. It's like it was the time of year where they should be migrating through, and so I just stood there and watched for a while, and the wrestling stopped and didn't see anything. Like, all right, well, whatever. It took off the other way. Walk back, pick up my bike, and start to pedal just a little bit, and then like back behind that, so about 100 yards now, this big ass brown bear comes out from behind the tree line. I was like, oh shit.
Oh shit.
So I stood there and I looked at it, and I was like, all right, he doesn't notice me. He's just kind of cruising along, and like he's kind of meandering towards the trail. And I was like, shit, I got to get going, because if he gets on this trail, like I'm pedaling uphill the other way. Like if I pedal this way, I'm going downhill. Gravity's working with me. So I was like, all right, go for it. So I just started pedaling as fast as I possibly could.
So you were going towards him?
Yeah, as fast as I could. And the sound of me pedaling through the grass and a little bit of rock, it spooked him, and he started running faster. And so like we were coming together like this, and then he darted off to the right, like 15 yards away from me and down the hillside. It was like
Holy
that.
shit.
That one got my heart pumping. That was probably like not the closest encounter to a bear, because like a couple weeks after that, I went on a pedal up on another trail, and ran out of time. I actually didn't even make it to the trailhead. turned around and started riding back down the road that I was the service road.
Yeah.
I was just coasting, nothing serious. Came around this corner and there was a fucking black bear in the middle of the road. And I was like, oh shit. So I slam on my brakes. And then that one bear turned into two bears. One darted off to the left and one darted off to the right. It was a mama and her cub.
Oh
So
shit.
luckily I didn't completely stop. I just slowed down enough. So I let off my, again, and just started pedaling as fast as I could and didn't even look back. I just pedaled until I got to the bottom of the road, which was like 3 miles down.
Mm-hmm.
My heart was pumping. That one was pretty good too.
Did you set any records on Strava or anything?
nah, I probably would have if I would have been recording it.
Yeah.
That one was pretty bad. But the biggest one I had sounds so dumb. So like, I'm sure you guys probably seen it. There was a video of a dude that got charged by a deer on the trail. Have you seen that video?
Is that the one that got like, T-boned as you were
Yeah,
riding?
like he's riding and the deer like charged at him.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally a week after that video went viral, I had something very, very similar happen to me up here. Like I was cruising another local trail here, and I woke up at like 05, start in the dark, started pedaling up, and sun was starting to come out. So sweet, start pedaling down the trail once I got up there and took a break. And like maybe a quarter of the way down the trail, it finally starts to like open up a little bit. And there's this gap I've been eyeballing like all summer long. And there's like just enough of a lip where if you were going fast enough, you could pull. And then there was like a mound kind of off the main trail to the left, just enough. If you were going fast enough, you could pull and gap it. And it was like a 20, maybe 30-foot gap. And I was coming into it and I was like, I think I have the speed. And so I would start pedaling even harder just to make sure. And as I'm pedaling, like out of the corner, because I'm staring at the jump, out of the corner of my eye up onto the high hillside, I see something move. I was like, all right, didn't think anything of it. And as I'm pulling up off the lip, this deer, this 4x4 deer is coming down the trail. And I'm pulling up off this lip. Like at this point, I'm like just locked in. And by the time I come down and land, like his head is right where I'm landing. And so I smack him in the neck and head, and he spins, and I go up on the hillside, fully compress. And then after my bike compresses, it launches me across the trail to the downside, and I roll for a little bit, knock the wind out of myself, and like slowly get up. Like I'm still clipped into my bike, and I just am struggling to figure out how I'm like gonna get up. I turn, and the deer is in the middle of the trail, just laying there. I'm like, oh shit, I just killed this deer.
You knocked them out?
And like, yeah,
sorry,
like
go ahead.
He's still sitting there, and I was like, okay, look at my bike. Is my bike good? So like I pick my bike up, I start looking at it. It looks pretty good. And by that point, I turn and look again, and the deer's starting to like slowly stagger up. And I'm like, oh shit. So he staggers up and like turns and looks at me and like, what the fuck just happened? And then like looks around for a second and then just darts it up the hill. And I'm like, this was the craziest experience I've ever had. And then the pain started to set in. And I was like, I need to get home before I can't ride. And so I slowly rode my way back. I ended up breaking my front brake. So I had only my rear brake for the 4 miles left of trail. And then I had to ride another 3 miles back home after that. And it was just not fun. Like it hurt so much. But that was probably the craziest experience of animals on the trail I've had.
Damn. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like, I wonder if that was the same deer and it was like karma getting him back. He just knocked his ass out.
I'm gonna get it.
You ever hear any stories of anybody kind of seeing any kind of like, I don't know, like strange lights in the sky or anything in Oregon? Or
oh dude, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got a lot. Like I mean, I've experienced it at home too. But like there's all sorts of weird stuff, and between weird lights and like ghost stories, there's tons and tons of stories of like in certain hotspots in Oregon. A lot of it is like like Eastern Oregon, out in the desert area. And like my wife her family owned a house out there, and when she was a kid, she remembers one time specifically, like they were driving out this highway out to their house, and it's pitch black because they're in the middle of nowhere, and then this giant red light from the sky came down and was behind them. Like it came from above and this is before drones, right? Like
Right.
this isn't a drone. Like it came and then it was behind them, and it wasn't a bright white light, it was a red light. And then it, like she explains it like Knight Rider, you know, the light that goes
Yeah.
like it was doing that. And then their dog that they had was going ape shit, like just going ballistic, and their dog never did that, so they started freaking out. So her mom was doing like the speed limit 55, and at one point they were doing like a buck 10 trying to like outrun this thing, and it was staying right behind them.
Yeah.
And then to get to their house, then there was two ways to get in. You could go up to the main entrance and come through the town, and then there was this like super sketchy service road where you like bomb through like power lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so she like slammed on her brakes, hit that corner, and started mobbing through that way. And then it just straight up disappeared. Like once they made the turn, and the dog calmed down like immediately after. It was just one of those weird experiences.
Yeah, that's definitely and if I haven't experienced some of the things I've experienced, and it's not even a lot, like, but there is definitely some things that I've experienced that I've talked about it on here before, and it's knowing what I know about aircraft, and that's not even a whole lot. It's just my experience around being around a lot of jets and like what I feel advanced technology, at least man-made technology. It's there's definitely a veil or something else that exists that either people know about, don't talk about, or something. I don't know. But yeah, that I definitely don't. I've gone down many rabbit holes to try to explore that, and that's one of the things to talk about on here. Like, is this whether it's paranormal, whether it's UAPs, I guess is a new acronym for it, and there's been a lot of investigative journalists that have kind of covered this. One of the more recent ones, I mean, I don't think he's an investigative journalist, but I don't know if you follow Jeremy Corbell.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so him, and then I think his name's Richard Knapp, out of Las Vegas. He's been tracking the whole Bob Lazar story since like the 70s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's why I asked, because I think I was watching, what's that dude's name? He's out of Oregon. He's a YouTuber. I saw him at Sedona. I just didn't go up to him or say what's up or whatever. He rides for Ibis. Really, he seems like a cool dude, great rider. Either way, I was watching his YouTube channel, and he was just kind of like nonchalantly just talking, and he just kind of like off the cuff said like, I've even caught like some really strange sounds on my GoPro, like, some ghost stuff. And then he kind of just shifted like away from it. And
yeah,
that kind of always stayed with me. And when I was talking to you, that's why I asked, like, have you ever like captured anything on your GoPro or seen anything, or have heard anybody that talk about like some consistent or strange shit that happens in one area or not?
yeah. I haven't caught anything on video yet. At some point I
Matter
probably
of
will.
time.
Yeah, right. Especially I do a lot of night riding. Just like we were talking earlier, like finding the time to schedule things out. And by the time I get done being a dad, doing work, like I want to go ride, it's getting close to dark, like throw the lights on and go. So I've seen some lot of like like the very first time I saw Starlink, it freaked me the fuck out. Like just like that's a perfect line of stars in a row, and then they're moving. I was like, that's really weird. Is this fucking aliens? And then I was like, no, that's got to be satellites, because it's like just too perfect and then like too consistent. So at the end, like once I got done with my ride, I Googled it and figured out it was Starlink. But the first time I saw it, it freaked me out.
Yeah, I haven't seen Starlink in the sky yet, but I'm gonna look for it.
Yeah, I've seen it 3 times now. Like once then I 4 times now. So then and then at Mount Bachelor, we were talking about aliens, like just
Nice.
experience, just like what we're doing now, just different experiences. And then sure shit, like right when the conversation dulled, like it was flying overhead, and we're like, all of us are just like, whoa, the timing couldn't have been perfect.
Yeah.
And another time down in Tahoe, I saw it. And then again up here in Oak Ridge, I saw it the other day. So it throws you off guard when you first see it. But we've my buddy and I actually had the conversation like that's going to be the norm. Soon you're just going to see, like, I mean, if you stop and look up at the stars, like, I don't know if most people do that, but I like it.
I did
It's
too.
especially where I'm at, man. Like, it's so dark, and like when it's clear, like you get to see so much. And so you get to see all the satellite traffic going through and whatnot. And it's pretty crazy to think, like, my buddy and I were actually having this conversation the other day, like, when my kids are my age and they look up in the sky, like how much satellite traffic is going to be up there compared to now is going to
Yeah.
be insane.
Have you seen that movie Wally?
Yeah.
You know where
We make the joke that's going to be unfortunate
yeah,
reality.
I feel it is, and it's quickly getting there with all the space debris and everything.
Yeah.
No, while I was in, there's actually technology where satellite radar dishes that track just space trash. And they would always brag about how it could track like the size of a basketball, like in space, it's like they'd
Yeah.
be able to track it, pin it, and see its orbit or whatever. So I can't imagine just space trash plus satellites, and then like the U.S., China, and all these other countries that have shit up in there,
Yeah.
space station and all this stuff. But yeah, definitely. And I wonder if it's. I think that's part of it, right? In the sense of we've lost the connection with something bigger than us. I mean, you kind of like talked about God earlier, but within that is like um nature, right? There's these aspects, there's these the concentric rings within the growth of a tree or like, leaves
Mm-hmm.
and just this like Andrew Huberman talks about the benefits of forward momentum and like what it does to your brain and your synapses and etc. So talking about depression, battling depression, like forward movement, physical activity, putting your
Yeah.
body under stress, there's all these good things that are derived from that. And I feel like that's why the more technology kind of takes away or adds convenience to our life, the more we get disconnected from nature and the bigger things that have created us. Because I feel like we're from it and not external to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
but with that is, as technology evolved, cities, lights, all these things have kind of taken our way. We're looking down and not looking up anymore.
Yeah,
You can go
totally.
back to ancient cultures, civilizations where their entire understanding of like the cosmos was I don't want to say way more advanced, because I think we're starting to get back there and people are starting to become more aware of it, especially with the James Webb telescope, Hubble telescope, and, astronomers talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson and all these other, mainstream scientists. And then you factor in um, quantum mechanics and like uh, string theory and like this connection and fractals. I guess that what I'm saying is like pointing it back to mountain biking. That's one thing that it kind of brought me back to, right? It's this um, appreciation for nature, appreciation for because when I grew up, I didn't have access, even though these trails were here, this parks were here. I wasn't brought up in the environment. Like I really never left my neighborhood. I didn't have access to bikes. If I did have bikes, it was just like in the street, jumping fucking
Yeah.
self-made ramps and
Oh yeah.
whatever, try to stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Being a kid trying to
Yeah.
figure shit out. Yeah. I used to
Yeah.
do the
I
same
think
shit.
Rad came out and I was trying to do shit like that and
Yeah.
eating shit then. But either way, my point is that I didn't have this connection. We didn't go camping all the time. We go to the lake every once in a while, but there wasn't this
Yeah.
appreciation for trails and nature and trees and animals or nothing like that. But when I started mountain biking again, or when I started mountain biking again, when I started mountain biking, like each ride, I became, I don't know, connected in a different way. I'm not trying to get too hippie-ish right now, but I
Oh
think it's
no.
true. And there's a lot of people that ride that I've had. I don't always have these conversations with people, but you can kind of see the common thread within it. And some of the long road trips that we go on and stuff, we kind of talk about some of these things, and it's a very common thing that we all experience, but it's not bringing. I think it's important to bring awareness to it, because within that we got to take care of this place, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, definitely. Like I'm very connected to nature. Like that's part of the reason why we picked where we picked to live. Leading before we moved to Oak Ridge, we lived in Springfield, which is about the sister town to Eugene, and we sold our house and bought a travel trailer, a 24-foot travel trailer, and we like there's six of us. Like I have four kids, my wife, and then at that point we had two dogs. Um, it was
Nice.
it was tight spaces, but we traveled the Northwest for the year. And it was actually the year um, leading into SOS. So that year that I was like really trying to find myself and like get healthier. It came back to like just being outside, being in nature, and like realizing how, like you were saying, like kind of not necessarily protecting it, but like trying to do as much as we can to help preserve it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of what I like to do. Like I like to give back to my local areas as much as I can, like trail stewardship or trail maintenance and like anything advocacy. Like I'm pretty fortunate and also kind of unfortunate. Like I am completely surrounded by national forest, like entirely. So like our city infrastructure can't really expand past what it is.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean it could, but
But
like
then,
we're confined by national forest, and national forest isn't gonna, oh yeah, we could sell this chunk for the city.
right.
Like it's gonna stay the way it's gonna stay. And like right after we bought our house, we had a huge fire that almost leveled our town. So like that was a stressful environment, and like also a realization like we're not where we were when I was a kid. Like a forest fire got put out in like a couple of days. Like
Mm-hmm.
it took out like thousands upon thousands of acres of forest, and it almost took out our hometown. So that's where it's unfortunate. Like every year,
Mm-hmm.
like that's something we have to be thinking about and preparing for. And so trying to help mitigate those risks when we can, I think is beneficial, and just giving back to nature.
Yeah. I remember driving up to Oregon and seeing, well, one, smelling. That's the first thing I know how I noticed it was like, I think it was Northern California up into Oregon, and it was just like, it seemed like miles of just burnt like woods.
When
And
did you come up?
I came up March of last year, I think.
Okay. So yeah, you would have been right after the fire then.
Yeah, that, and I
Yeah,
remember the people at the schoolhouse talking about it.
yeah, they had a pretty big fire through there too,
So
unfortunately.
yeah, and I mean, and it's crazy, right? Like how so much devastation brings so much beauty in that. Like that's part of the. We just live next to it now, right? We live in it,
Yeah, yeah.
and but that's always been through the, you know, through the history of like volcanoes or any type of hurricane or anything like that. It just brings like new growth or whatever. I'm not agreeing with the destruction and what it does to people,
Oh,
but
no,
go
it
ahead.
does. It brings new life to the forest. Like the next highway over, the other highway that takes you from Eugene over to Bend, they Mackenzie, they had a huge fire um 2 years ago. And if you drive it now, like you'll see the burnt trees, but how lush it is up that drive now is insane. Like it wasn't like that before the fire,
Yeah.
but it is like just bright green. Like if you were to like be on an iPhone and text someone that's on an Android, it's like that bright green.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I think all that's like important. And that's kind of one of the benefits of mountain biking is, and like to each their own, like you don't have to ride a bike to find nature. You could hike, you could run, you could, I don't know, camp or whatever. But it's like reestablishing that connection. And one of the things I do love about whether hiking, mountain biking, or whatever is that it takes you to these places you cannot access with a car. And then on top of that, even if you could, let's say you had a helicopter, you still wouldn't appreciate it as much because you had to work for it. You had to,
Yeah.
push a bike, climb, whatever,
Yeah.
and through that. And then when you're doing it with a group, whether TDTP or Soldiers on Singletrack, you're kind of sharing the suck together, kind of like in the military.
Yeah.
And then like you're like the top, like, oh man, I never thought it was gonna be over. And then there's that kind of like, even if somebody wasn't talking at the beginning, they're talking at the top. And then the
Yeah.
way down, it's like just fucking elation and high fives and afterwards from the way down. And it kind of breeds that it kind of bonds people in that way, in a better way than I feel that most of us vets, me included, I used to just deal with my shit with drinking or whatever, you know what I mean? To try
Oh
to
yeah.
cope with it, meds or whatever. And this is a better, more sustainable way to control or become aware of what's going on within you and then like use it as a, I'm finding losing my train of thought, but it's just better than the other methods that are kind of provided traditionally.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it kind of goes with like when everyone was in, right? We were seeking that edge, right? Um, you got that rush and that edge from taking missions or what have you, like whatever that edge was for you, that
Mm-hmm.
rush while you were deployed. Like for me as an infantryman, it was like going out of the wire, and like you don't know what's going to happen as soon as you cross that wire. Like you got to be ready for anything. So to pursue that post military, I feel like a lot of people fall into the traps and the whether it be drinking, drugs, what have you, man. Like people are, it's easy to fall into the trap. So creating an environment where, like you said, like you get a group together that is in embracing the suck, enjoying the suck to get to the top of said mountain or said view, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be bikes or even like going out fishing. Like you have to get all your shit together and make the journey to get to go
Mm-hmm.
fishing, and then you have to sit and wait for a fish to possibly get on, right? Like there's moments of the suck, and then you get to enjoy the reward, but in that meantime you're seeking that edge, whether it be single track or um, hiking up the trail, like, and then once you get there you get that rush, right?
Right.
The view, or like you hit a jump for the first time, like whatever it may be,
Yeah.
or you land a Chinook, like whatever the case may be, you get that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's creating that group and that environment that provides a safe environment. I say safe, like
Safe.
relative
Yeah.
safe, right?
Yeah.
Uh, as much as you can,
Yeah.
and it'll be beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I've had my share, I'm sure we all have, but I remember one time I I was getting ready for a race and it was the last run of it's always the last run. Like it was the last run of the day. The wind picked up and I hit a drop that I had hit before several times. As soon as I hit this drop, a gust of wind kind of blew me left to right. And I had some like Fox, like those like just slip on like elbow pads. It weren't
Oh
like it
yeah.
was no armor or nothing. I think they were kind of loose a little bit, but I pretty much did the people's elbow like right into the ground, like
Oh
this,
yeah.
like just no, I was talking about Texas limestone and like these like not baby heads, but like little pebbles. And it just ripped everything off, like my ripped the sleeve off, and then a friend of mine who's an RN was like, he's also a vet. He was like, "Hey man, we gotta go." I was like, "All right." I was like, "He's like it's." He was trying to keep me calm, and I was just like, "I got to keep moving." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, like it hurts. I'm aware it's bad. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it. I don't know how I'm gonna react to it. So I just started pedaling, rode all the way back. Got in the car. He took me to the ER, and then they were stitching me up. But I remember thinking while I was sitting in there trying to convince the ER doc to start mountain biking. Um, and he was like, "I used to ride, and I was asking if I could still race, and I still could have, but it, the risk reward wasn't there. You know what I mean?
No,
So I
yeah.
decided not to race. But which I'm glad I did, because I think learning more about like the nervous system, your body goes into this shock, you know, because it's
Yeah.
just trauma any kind. And I got kind of sick. I couldn't get like I couldn't eat anything the next day because it happened like on a Thursday. The race was Saturday. My wife, she started going into traditional Chinese medicine,
Oh yeah.
acupuncture and stuff like that. So that's kind of bringing more awareness, more education to understanding like the human body, understanding the different
Yeah.
understanding of like how Eastern medicine sees the body, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think they should be merged. Anyways, I say all that to say this.
Completely agree. You're good.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
talk about this in another podcast to get more in the weeds. But with that, it even all that sucked. I remember thinking in the ER as I'm getting like stitched up, like this, I'd rather go through this pain than the pain, like the mental anguish that I was in, like within those, I don't know, last 4 or 5 years. It was really longer, but it really didn't hit me till like everything got quiet at my last assignment. And my mission was kind of changing, and I was more in an administrative role. And it was just, that's when stuff like started really getting bad. I started drinking more and all this shit. But I just remember like, yeah, this sucks. It hurts. I got 33 stitches, you know, in my fucking
Yeah.
elbow, and I'm probably not going to ride for a while. But I was still like riding this high. It could have been adrenaline at the same time,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
every injury that I had after that, breaking my hand, um, like shredding all the skin off my elbow, every time it was still like I'd rather still be in this pain than that pain, and it was all attributed to mountain biking, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know where I'm trying to go with that, but I think it's just this uh whether adrenaline rush or the community, or maybe it's all together, nature, community, riding, that it kind of, it's just this like perfect recipe to uh find your way out in your new path, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I I've crashed quite a bit in the last couple of years. Luckily, I haven't thoroughly injured myself yet, but like you were saying, like the pain of grilling that deer sucked immensely. Like after it all set in, like
Especially for the deer.
I would like to be able to see if that deer like ended up living. Like he took off, so I'm assuming he like was
Yeah,
good. It wasn't like an adrenaline spike and then died. But
right.
dude, that was some of the worst pain I've been in a long time. It felt like I got hit by a straight up truck, and it took me like days to be able to like walk through my house. Like I was just hobbling, and I thought the same thing. Like this pain sucks a lot, but it is way better than what I was dealing with before.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could actually process my thoughts. I can actually enjoy what I'm doing, even though it hurts right now. But like I'm actually enjoying it as opposed to before. Like I was just numb and didn't really know what I was doing. I was just day to day, just doing what I needed to do to get to the end of the day. But
Yeah, I
now I
hear
get,
that, dude. I hear that. Um, and I'm glad you know, kind of rediscovered your passion for mountain biking. I'm glad you, because I could see how, especially with the VA, I mean, I can't really talk too much shit about it. I've heard a lot of other people's experiences with it. Fortunately for me, the right doors open when they needed to. The programs that I was in kind of opened those doors. They kind of like shoehorned my package through, and they, you know, reevaluated me. Like there's a program called Home Base Boston that I went through, and they kind of like help like walk my package through, and I was able to contact somebody. But I also understand, like trying to make an appointment with the VA, how people can just like, you know what, like, because sometimes I'll call just to make a regular appointment, and I don't get through, or I get the person on the line, they just hate their, it's like they hate their job or whatever, and it makes
yeah,
it, as somebody that doesn't, the place I was in, and not even wanting to ask for help, or not even understanding like there was something wrong with me. I thought it was just, I didn't know what the fuck was going on, because I was still doing the mission. I was still being successful. So I didn't think anything was wrong with me. But then after, you know, an attempt, I was like, obviously I'm not right. There's no, like, I'm fucking
Yeah.
lying to myself. So that kind of led me into it, and I started to unfold, and I continue to do that to this day. But with that, it's definitely challenging to meet a wall and then like figure a way around the wall, because not
Mm-hmm.
all physicians are the same. And you could have had one that was like, well, man, well, I guess that sucks. If she, he or she, if they didn't ask that question, like, well, what did you love before? What did you do before? Find a hobby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And give you an alternative, as opposed to like, well, that's just the way cards are dealt. You're fucked pretty much.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, for you to actually like, you know what, let me try it, and then do that. Because as we all know, when you're in that place, maybe I speak for myself, it's hard to just do the most, get out of bed or uh workout or whatever. Like, at least for me, it was hard for me to do some of the most simplest things, to just find any joy in anything.
Oh yeah, totally. I completely agree with that. It when you're in that space, like it's really hard to take the step to get out of it. And that I believe that is the hardest step, is to either A, admit that something's wrong, or B, take the step to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like, I'm very thankful that I have my wife, because she was the one that like pointed me in that direction. But like, if I didn't have her helping me go that way, like who knows what would have happened. But luckily I have her, and she did point me in that direction. And I feel like if you don't have a person to rely on to help push you in that direction, like that is the hardest step, is taking that first step to change, and to admit that, like, this isn't right, like this isn't normal, and
Mm-hmm.
finding that community, right? Like that's part of the reason why I felt like starting Soldiers on Singletrack was a great spot, like to get those people that are in that spot, that like maybe have gone to the VA or maybe not, but know that something's wrong, but they don't have that community to rely on, that have gone through that same struggle. Because there are people that don't agree with like talk therapy and things like that, which is
Yeah.
that everyone's got their own view on things, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if had talk therapy first with somebody that has gone through something similar, like just a battle buddy, or you know somebody that has experienced it, like to be able to communicate the struggles that you're going through, and maybe they did the same thing but they've worked through it, like to be able to rely on someone, I think is a huge piece of it, and to change your habit to move forward.
Yeah. And I agree with everything you said. And I'll add to it. Not that it needs any adding, because I think you said it pretty well. But one of the things I noticed is that I'll highlight that you said is, like, in the programs, a lot of the healing came from vets talking to each other, like hearing their stories. And then, like, it was like there was a facilitator there that kind of gave you these tools.
Yeah.
And I can see the trouble around talk therapy and stuff like that. I was just at a place I didn't know what the fuck else to do, and I'm here, so I might as well try to participate,
Yeah.
because what I'm doing isn't working and hasn't been working. And luckily, I'll highlight my wife too. It wasn't for her leaving me these breadcrumbs. I mean, because she's a lot more well read than I am, and just saw it. And usually they say that the spouse is the first person to notice. And I'm fucking stubborn, I didn't.
Oh yeah.
So, anyways, long story short, yeah, vets, and she's a vet herself. Um, just kind of sharing the stories, or like leading by example, and putting in the working scene, especially if somebody outranks you, or you have a respect from somebody in the group or what have you. If they're doing the work and you can see them struggling, like, it encourages others, as opposed to, let's say the group was just like all negative and like, fuck this is stupid. And
Yeah.
especially the younger guys aren't going to follow suit, because they're just going to fall in line with whatever, the leaders are saying.
Yeah.
So, having said that, like, yes, talk therapy is not for everyone, meditation is not for everyone, yoga is not for everyone, but allowing people in the sense of riding bikes or whatever to like let it happen organically is probably like the best way. The storytelling, um, like as going back to, I guess I'll kind of going back to like, tribes and Native Americans kind of after wars, they would share their stories with the community, the group, and they would kind of share the load, the burden, and it kind of never stayed, I don't want to say never, but it didn't stay bottled for the
Yeah.
most part. And then just create this tension and eruption. And yeah, so I said a
Yeah.
lot, but
Yeah. No, maybe it was you and I talking about this, but I heard that again recently. Basically, like if you like the cup analogy, right? Like if you like you have all this trauma or things happening to you, right? Your cup is getting full, and it's going to get to the point where like it can't hold anymore. So being able to like share some with other people, like I feel like a lot of people don't want to burden someone else with like
mm-hmm.
what they've experienced, but if it's someone that has that same experience or very similar, like it's not really a burden at that point. It's sharing the experience, just like you were saying. Like there's something behind that. Um, that I mean, that's why vets get along with vets, or why vets get along with first responders, because there's an understanding of the trauma behind it, or
Mm-hmm.
I say trauma, but like whatever is going on.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's like twofold, right? One of it is in the military, they don't really teach you. I mean, maybe they are now, but they teach you how to take care of the mission, how to take care of others, but never really how to, at least I don't recall them. Maybe later on in my career, like maybe my last 4 years, they started to talk about like, um, the 5 pillars of like social, spiritual, and all these things. But
Yeah,
I think by that point, I wasn't even listening, and that's probably on me, or maybe I wasn't ready to hear it.
yeah,
But either way, it's not really, it wasn't really like part of the culture. So it's kind of hard to break yourself out of that understanding of like, I need to take care of others and put myself last, oftentimes, I guess like most leaders out, everyone eats first and you eat last, kind of thing. And that just kind of played into everything else. Right. And then it kind of, you know, was a bad recipe for, the situation I found myself in. But I'm glad, man. I'm glad you had your wife that was able to highlight some of those things and kind of bring awareness, and then at the same time, you to listen and to try to make the changes because not everybody does it.
yeah. I feel like I probably was a reluctant at first. I mean, stubborn, like right, like we think we know best, but ideally it wasn't the best. So it's best to listen and at least
Yeah,
attempt to change, and see, or attempt to do something different to see if it does change, and it did. So uh, yeah, I'm very thankful.
yeah. It's hard to hold a mirror to yourself. You know what I mean? And see, do you think you understand like what your faults are and your like the way you carry yourself? But when you actually literally hold a mirror to yourself, like when I did that one time and I was going to write a post about it because I'm not aware of my resting bitch face. It just
Oh
is what it
shit,
is.
same.
I took a picture just like, how do I look? And I just, whatever face I had, I just kept it and I took a picture and I just looked pissed off. And that maybe makes answers the question why so many people, when I used to go out, wanted to fight me. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but either way, my point is that we're not aware of how we carry ourselves, the things we say and how we say them and how people interpret them. I'm not saying that you can control how people will interpret or what you say or how you carry yourself in the world because they base that off of their experiences and their um, just outlook on life. But at the same time, I've taken that now that I'm aware of it. Now I'm trying to change it. Like when we were at Sedona, I was trying not like fakely because I'm not about that. Like if I don't, I'm not gonna like if I'm angry, I'm angry. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I tried to work on that. Try to get to that point where I'm it's not controlling me, but at the same time, it's like I need to put on a welcoming face. I got to smile more and like kind of, but I'm not aware. Even my humor, I come off like an asshole because I like have that like dry humor where I'm not
Yeah.
smiling.
Yeah.
Uh, some people get it, not everyone, but
Yeah. It's one of those things. I've been working on very similar things. And so I completely understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Especially when you're like at an event like that. Like I can't imagine doing Sedona, just because the mass amount of people that you're having to interact with on like a grand scale. Like I go to a national, like one of our races, and I think that's big. Like can't
yeah.
imagine doing like a big event like that. That's a lot of people that I have to interact with. And I'm not like, not that I'm not good with interacting people, but like you said, like people look at you and like your face looks like you're pissed off, even though you're not. You're probably having a great time, but
Hmm.
they're going to see that and be like, oh, I'm not going to interact with him. He looks out mad, but
Great.
inside you're like stoked. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something I'm trying to work on myself as well.
And it was definitely like I was intentionally, not only me, but there was other people around that kind of, sharing that thing like that. Like I wouldn't be able to be here if you guys weren't here, like it's like
Yeah.
that trusting, like the group you're with. And I heard that from a couple people, to include myself. Uh, like 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't have gone to that. I felt like I would have needed to. I wasn't drinking at the time, but I felt like I would have needed to drink and just to kind of be around that many people.
Yeah.
And maybe it's control. I mean, it's a lot of different things that kind of wrap into that fucking whatever it is. But uh, this year I was apprehensive going into it. It worked out. We had a small booth. The crowds weren't as crazy as we thought because of the snow
It's
that
just
came
snow
in.
donut.
Yeah, snow donut, man. It was like we got it to our Airbnb and it was like in the mountains somewhere, like in a valley. It was beautiful, but and I kind of enjoyed it just because maybe it brought back like my times in the military. I was digging trenches like fucking all day, every day. But I had to clear the driveway of snow. It was like I think they got like 24 inches or so of snow. Yeah, and it was kind of like it wasn't wet, wet, but it was like wet. It's kind of heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just attacking it at layers, and just kind of
Yeah.
shoveling away. Uh, and then on top of that, like starting to fire and stuff. But it was a good time overall. We didn't get to get as much writing in, but it was a good balance of everything, and it was a
That's
good
good.
trip. But my point is, yes, I understand that, and I kind of saw that as a win, for myself, is to be around the man that um, so many strangers and so much going on at once, and then like even like actively trying to do things that are not in my wheelhouse. It's like like one of the things, because we're just sitting around and there was a lot of like we had a lot of support and volunteers and stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna take some decals. I'm gonna go. I talked to a couple other guys that we're with. I was like, hey, let's like divide and conquer. Let's just go meet all the vendors, handed out decals, and introduce
Yeah.
us who we were, etc. So that was challenging, especially talking to. I'm good about talking to people, but it's the initial engagement. Like I'm not good at. If it doesn't feel right, I won't do it.
Yeah.
But I actively try to do that, and some people were welcoming, other people were kind of just like standoffish, like what's this dude up to? He's trying to get a free jersey or something, but
Right.
but either way, I mean, I try to see everything as an opportunity now, and if I become aware of something that is negative that I'm doing, I try to actively change it, when before I was like, oh, that's your fucking problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But out of the way, man. Yeah. So what do you guys, I mean, what do you kind of foresee? Like, what are your big rocks that you have over the next couple of years or next year, I
Oh
guess?
man. Uh, I have my own my own personal goals that I want to achieve. But like within SOS, but it's ever changing, man. Like we
Yeah.
get more people that want to get involved. Um, I have some visions that I want to proceed, but like I also know that we need to cater to the community as a whole, not just what I see fit. So
Right.
um, I've been very open with everybody of like, like ideally we'd like to be able to host and like have our own fleet. Like I'm sure you guys are on the same page too. Like having, like, I know you guys already do, but like having a fleet of bikes to be able to have on hand so that if someone doesn't have a bike, you have one that they could come out and come ride with you, slash protective gear, right? Is
Right.
more likely if they don't have a bike, they don't have a helmet at least. So being able to do that, I think is going to be a big, our next first step. But like as a community as a whole, like I want to involve the community more than what I think we should do as a,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, and so I'm working on starting something up so that we can kind of have back and forth between everybody within the community and kind of get some ideas going forward, and see which direction people kind of want to see it going. Like we do the monthly ride thing, group ride, and then the race team is this is the beta year, right? Trying to figure out what's going to work. How can we improve on it for the future year? Because for me, racing is it's what I look forward to. Next year, I might not do as many races as I'm doing this year.
Mm-hmm.
I might go in a little bit different direction, but racing is near and dear to my heart, and I want everyone to be able to experience that. I'm not going to push people into it, but
Right.
I highly recommend it because it elevates that therapy aspect. I think that adjunct therapy aspect tenfold. Like once you get
Mm-hmm.
in between the tape, man, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are nervous about it because they feel like they have to be number one or they can't do it. And I
Right.
think that ties into just that military mindset. Like you better be the best or you're fucked.
You're not first, you're
So
last.
yeah, exactly, Ricky Bobby. But we're trying to change the dynamic for people to really see like it's another community to get involved with that is very welcoming. Like even though there's like majority of them are civilian, like it's a very welcoming environment, and it's not, I mean, it's competitive, but it's a internal competitiveness as opposed to external. Like most of the people that we race against could give two shits less about how you do. Like obviously
Mm-hmm.
they want to see you do well, but they're not like, oh, I'm going to crush this dude. Um, they're supportive and like want to
Right.
like help you on race lines, or like, oh, what are you doing in this section of trail? Like it's very, very community driven. And so like breaking that stigma for most people is kind of my goal right now. And that's actually we have a big ride coming up in end of April at Cayuga in North Carolina. And that's, it's set up as like a race camp weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially that's what it's for, is to kind of help break that stigma of nervousness for most people. And to kind of show them like, okay, this is how most races work. This is the trail. And then this is how you would race this section of trail. Because riding it is one thing, racing it's completely different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so trying to help riders understand that and feel comfortable doing that and help improve them with their community and their bike skills and giving them another sense of purpose and challenging them is the goal right now.
Yeah, man. Definitely, I agree with a lot of those points. And usually, what I tell people on the team is like, you can have your individual. I think I said this earlier. You can have your individual goals, but as long as those goals don't like override and makes you turn you into an asshole, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And keeping it fun. I forgot
yeah,
to mention that. Like the whole point of it is to have fun above everything else. If you're not having fun, then why are you doing it? Um,
exactly.
yeah. So like, for me, that's like just a duh type thing. But yeah, like keeping it fun is probably the main key, and
Hmm.
going fast.
And which is easier said than done, especially when you or like when I first started racing, I tried to bring like team sports mentality over, and it doesn't apply.
Nah.
But it's also like I tell people like if you podium, it's a bonus, but that's not our main goal here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, man, if you want, we could talk more after, like offline, or if you ever have any questions, I'll try to share whatever knowledge I have with that and
Yeah.
try to help you along in whatever aspects. And hopefully it'd be cool if we can our team and y'all's team and whatever, wherever y'all are at, can do a race together and be fun.
Yeah, that would be a blast.
Yeah. And we can talk about that offline, but, yeah, man. So is there anything you want to promote, or how do people get a hold of you? I
Yeah.
know how,
So,
but
yeah. Like I said earlier, like we built this whole thing off of Instagram. So we're Soldiers on Singletrack on Instagram. We have a website, Soldiers on Singletrack Race and Ride. Is it Race and Ride? I don't remember now because I have like
yeah.
multiple
So
things.
just let me send it to me, and I'll put it in the description below.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. But yeah, that's the best ways to find us through Instagram or our website. And then, yeah, I'm always available. Well, not always, but if you send me a message, I do my best to respond to everybody within a day. And yeah, we're stoked to be helping other veterans getting out on bikes and enjoying the stoke.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate like you giving me your time and sharing and being honest, and just kind of sharing some of your experiences or what have you. And pretty sure it'll be appreciated for those that listen. But yeah, man, thanks for your time, and look forward to this probably in the next couple of weeks to be coming out.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a good experience and good to talk with you.
That's good, man. And hopefully we come on some other time. We'll talk about some more crazy stories and shit. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, man. Well, hey, thanks for everyone listening. If you like this content, please share it with uh, anybody that may like it, or check us out on YouTube for it's Crashing Combos on YouTube. We're also on Spotify, Pandora, and any other streaming app. I appreciate you guys listening and support. Going to try to keep them coming out as they come. I'm just going to end it real quick.
Just don't get arrested. Snapshots, anonymous photographers. So carefully coordinate your moves like a choreographer. Whip propped on the 15-inch alloys. Cause I'm looking at the future like the Jetson boy, Elroy. Sing that a different date, same saga, different name, same scenario, control the variables. Snitches crippling hustlers like figure 4 leg locks. But do it too big, you posing for the headshots. Cause the broke hating again. If not that, you living in an 8x10. Bags jealous of your wallet size. And for the right price, they'll sing to close your eyes like a lullaby. That's a dirt nap bone, so I'm alert back home. Be indirect, cause these jerks tap phones. Smirk manufacturing, beat knots. Picture me, Maserati nonchalantly pausing for paparazzi. No, that's not me. I'm getting laid like I stepped off a ship in Hawaii. Sick of sitcoms, what happened?